Hello there, and welcome to the Healthusiasm Podcast, a panel discussion on behaviors, innovations, and trends in health and self-care. My name is Christophe Jauquet. I'm the author of Healthusiasm and a global keynote speaker on health business. Every month, I discuss with a panel of experts the positive changes that are shaping the future of our health and happiness. And today we have a full panel. Calling in from Barcelona is our digital health connector, Aline Noizet.
Hola.
Our American in Paris and also our medical expert in digital health, Aditi Joshi.
Hello et bonjour.
From London, customer experience and research expert, Krupa Sutar.
Hi, everybody.
And last but not least, from Ghent, Belgium, but dialing in from Portugal today, human experience expert, Mo Zuina.
Goeiedag.
In this podcast, we will amplify the healthusiasm that we see in articles and new business ventures or simply even in the world around us. Now, if you never heard of healthusiasm, you might wonder what it is all about. Well, to be brief, healthusiasm is the aspiration that we all have to be healthy and happy. And as a result of this, every company or organization is now more than ever focused on making their customers healthy and happy. But healthusiasm is also what unites this panel. We are all very passionate about the different health projects that we are working on individually, but in general, we are definitely excited about the changes we are seeing happening in health and self-care. So in this podcast, we will discuss, we will reflect, and most certainly amplify all of these positive changes that we are seeing. And so we want to introduce our panel to the listeners. You'll get to know somebody who reads as fast backwards as forwards. You'll get to know somebody who sold spare parts for trucks, for real, and somebody who aspired to become a fashion designer. We also have a teacher in our midst and, well, somebody who wants to make health as sexy as the luxury industry. So maybe for a starter, let's try to find out who sold spare parts for trucks.
That's me.
Hi, Aline. Nice to have you.
Hi.
So tell me, what's the story behind that? I mean, we really need to I really want to get to the bottom of this.
Yeah, so before joining healthcare, I was actually selling spare parts for trucks, small trucks, and helping men to fix their trucks. So that their trucks were broken and they were calling me and I was fixing their trucks. And it was really a very good part of my life. It was very funny, like guy calling me. I remember one day, one guy called me, I helped him fix the truck super fast. And he's like, wow, if someone had told me this morning that a woman would help me fix my truck, it was a very good moment. Yeah. Interesting.
I never heard that story before, and we've met a couple of times. It's funny that you waited that many years to maybe just introduce it to me. But you are very passionate about health and definitely innovation in health, right? The new technologies and all of that.
Exactly. Yeah, it's really my passion.
This is what you do as a living today as well. Could you explain what you do now?
Yes, I've been doing that for the past 12 years. And my focus is really on startups. So to help startup to grow, to connect with potential clients, with investors. And I really believe that the startups who are developing amazing innovations can really have an impact on the healthcare system and really make a difference. And I wanted to help them to reach just the right people and then to reach the right market, to have an impact on the patient, healthcare professionals, etc.
Okay. And I think just like me, you also have some experience in pharma. Is that right?
Exactly, yeah. So I spent 3 years at Bayer, the pharma company. So they have an accelerator program that's called G4A, Grants for Apps. So I was part of the program manager here in Spain, in Barcelona, in New York, and then in Berlin.
Oh, that's great. Me, myself as well. I've been active in 13 years in pharma. So we kind of share that. And there's a lot to be unpacked there, what we can do with the future of health. Exactly. But I believe Mo as well, right? Mo, you were active in pharma for quite a while.
Yeah, I was on the other side. I was helping pharma brands get the message across that to their audience, be it patients or HCPs. So how do you make the value that you have as a pharma brand, tangible from a human perspective? So that I've done that for 12 years. It's been amazing.
Oh, cool. But back to Aline, maybe, because so we talked about your trucks and we talked about your passion about technologies, innovation and startups. But how did you switch? How did you end up in healthcare? How did that happen?
So I think that story is very funny. It's very random. I left the trucks to do MBA. So I came here in Spain to Barcelona. And one day there was an event where MBA students were meeting startups for the summer internship. And I was in the event talking to my French colleagues in French. And someone came to me and said, hey, look, like she speaks French. So the person that became my boss afterwards, he was actually looking for someone to help them enter the French market. So first I say, well, sales and healthcare. I'm like, no, thank you. Like, that's not for me. I'm not interested. I like Frédéric, who became my boss, like very much. And I accepted the job. And yeah, it really became like love at first sight. My first day in the job was a conference in Madrid with like 100 healthcare professionals and nurses who were sharing best practices about blogging and tweeting. So it was absolutely amazing. So yeah, that's how it started.
Yeah, it's funny if you talk about it with people. It counts for me as well. I studied business strategy and economics, and like the first job I really got was in pharma. So it just ended up in healthcare like that. Never really planned to stay that long. Basically, it was just the first job. But 20 plus years later, I'm still here.
What was interesting is that I applied to do an internship in a pharma company. So we were 4 to apply. Like all of them got accepted, but me. The 3 others got accepted, but me. But at the end, like 3 years later, I ended up in Bayer. So, I think that's also encouraging for the people. Like, just set a goal for yourself, and maybe it will take longer, but you can get there eventually.
Yeah, definitely. And we were talking about how we stumble into health and well-being and self-care, but I think that was also the case for Krupa. You also certainly were working on health and self-care, right?
Yeah. So I actually, when I graduated with a psychology degree, I worked in research and then decided I was going to do a teaching degree to be an educational psychologist. Anyway, I decided I wanted to stay in research and merge those two together and work with children, conducting children's research.
I was very intrigued as well when we first met and we talked that you said that your introduction to health, besides your own experience and the way that you manage your own health, was actually with companies like Mattel and companies like Disney, which are typically not the first companies you think of when you think of health and well-being. So I was very intrigued by that, and I'm very curious to get your insights on how you look from that angle to health and self-care for sure. Aditi, you really wanted to be in health, right? That was not you didn't stumble into it. It was from kids onwards that you wanted to be in health, right?
That's right. So I obviously am in health because I'm a physician, but I wanted to be a physician even though I was a child. I always thought I would be a cardiothoracic surgeon, but while in medical school, I really liked emergency medicine. So I transitioned into that, and that's what I did my residency in, and that's what I practiced. But I stumbled into tech, so relevant to this podcast and this group. In 2013, I joined a telemedicine startup. And, from there, I led telemedicine programs, a huge academic medical center, which, really opened up a lot of creativity that isn't necessarily part of medicine. It was very new. So we had to create pathways and education and just even how do you practice this? How do you get physicians? How do you get patients to use it? And so obviously during the pandemic, everyone learned a lot about it, but we really had a lot of that basis already. And so it was really great to finally see it move forward in such a way. But yes, I had to stumble into it. But yes, I've always been in healthcare.
How does that go? Because basically, they've always been two different worlds with different cultures and different approaches. How did that mix and match go? When you first entered that tech world as a medically trained person, how difficult, how easy was it? What did you learn, or what was your frustrations?
It depends on where I was. So first I was at a startup, and then I went to an academic medical center. They are two very different spaces. I would say with a startup, it does work differently because there's a lot of trial and error and things move very quickly. And, because I was coming in also as a clinician, we were practicing telemedicine. That really wasn't too difficult. It helped being an emergency medicine physician because that's exactly what we do. When things don't go right, we have to change very quickly and think on our feet very quickly. So in that way, it was it was in line with it. Now, an academic medical center is different. Things move a lot more slowly. Saying that, though, that's where the standards are set. That's where clinicians learn. That's where we do research. That's where we say, this is how you're supposed to practice. So doing telemedicine from there and trying to standardize it, validate it at that level, that actually was really important work as well. And even the place that I was working at, it's called Thomas Jefferson, and the CEO there really was committed to changing the way that academic medical centers look at health tech. He actually, his whole point was that if you're going to have a tech ecosystem that is dictating to physicians, that shouldn't be how it works. It should really be the health systems also dictating how tech should work. And so we came at it with that premise. And so there was a lot more nimbleness than you would expect. But yeah, it was a lot of just growth and trying out things that didn't work over and over.
How did you live that? Because you've been in tech maybe for, I think your focus is maybe a little bit more on tech than on medical. How do you see those two match right now?
Well, I really seen the evolution. I've been in the space for 12 years. And looking back, I think it's very interesting to see how things have evolved. Like I remember it was 2013 being at a conference in London. And it's when Fitbit actually launched. And it was like a huge thing, like first wearable startups were coming and say, yeah, what can we do? Which data can we collect? And then say, yeah, we're trying to get to the hospital, or we don't know how to get there. And now if you think about it, like today, it's amazing what has been happening. All the data that we can collect, like wearables are really mainstream. Software implemented in the hospital with that technology. So it's a slow industry, but if you think about it, things have been happening.
It's true, but I would still say it's still difficult to get into health systems. I will say that it's still difficult to try things out. Yeah,
definitely. What I really liked about the first discussion that we had at DT was the way that I primarily operated in Europe. You primarily operated or worked in the States. I'm not particularly a physician or a medically trained person. You are. And so we have a bit the same or the opposite objectives when we work in this space. I remember when we talked about, I'm always trying to convince the health system to move forward and to dare to do stuff, even when it's not exactly, solid yet, and just to try to find out stuff. While you were definitely from your American background, but also from your medical background, were rather in the opposite, where you try to make them reflect upon what is the actual medical impact of things. And I think that will be very, very interesting in the discussion that we will have, right?
I think so. And I will say that despite the fact that you and I might seem to be very different, I'm actually considered quite forward thinking within medicine and willing to try things because things move much more slowly. So I think if some of my colleagues heard you say, oh, you're Aditi is pretty conservative, they would probably laugh too, because that's just the way medicine is.
Yeah, I definitely agree. Mo, you wanted to jump in?
Yeah, I'm always amazed by the inertia, the medical culture, right? It's always a balance between risk and output and things like that. But getting new things adopted is really a challenge.
Yeah.
I remember in the agency where we work, we called it health inertia, right? So I think the ambition versus the actionability, Aline, you talked about data, and I think everyone is looking at data, but how do you make that actionable, right? Secondly, even, being convincing for a physician to try out new things, there's an inertia there that we really have to integrate. And that's something that I experience into how do you put people in motion to try and not even experiment, even if the data is correct, even if the facts are interesting, there's still kind of a holdback. And that's, I think, one of the main challenges we have. And that I found really, really surprising in the health industry, since there's so much at stake. It's worth giving, new ideas a try.
Yeah.
So that's my experience.
Definitely. And I think that I understand where that experience also coming from, because myself, I as a kid, I wanted to be in fashion, particularly because things go faster. It's really creative. People make things, they make a difference. They want to speak to people, to the hearts of people. And I think you as well, Mo, you were active within Gucci. You're active in different personal care brands as well, which is rather, sometimes I explain it as being the opposite of the spectrum of healthcare and pharma.
Yes and no. I worked 12 years in a luxury group, which was called the Gucci Group. Now it's called Kering, which is appropriate. And there is an irrationality about luxury, because if you really think about it, why would you pay 2,000 euros for a handbag? Why would you pay 200 euros for a fragrance? There is an irrationality. And we tapped into that irrationality. And there's also an irrationality to health today. If people would know, they wouldn't do what they were doing. And they are still doing it. So that's where these two worlds kind of come together. And then the third part is a sexiness. there's a sexiness and there's an aspiration to luxury. I think that's really refreshing to have a look at desirability. How do we support pharma, health and wellness brands into making what they offer really sexy so that people say yes to it, right? That's where these universes kind of merge together. And that's where I was able to make most of the difference in that thinking manner.
Mo, I would be curious if you think that some of the devices that we're using are considered luxury goods, because I do think they are. It's still level, like some of the iPhones, the watches, some of these are considered luxury goods. And I'd be curious if you think the same.
I not only think they are considered luxury goods, I think they are part of building your identity, right? Just as luxury brands are doing, A lot of people would not wear them if they wouldn't be seen. I wear this, for instance, which is an Oura ring, right? You probably know about it, but it has become kind of a statement. And people say, what are you wearing? Is that a ring? And I'm saying, I'm tracking my sleep. So as we evolve, in this, being seen, being identified, being recognized, I think, first of all, health is the ultimate luxury. But there's also kind of fitness also has become statutory. Right? You see people walking in the street with what they call athleisure, right? Saying, I'm working out. Sometimes I say, no, you're not. Anyway. So I think health and fitness have become part of your identity, part of I'm making it in life. I am performing well. So yes, I agree with you, Aditi, that health is the ultimate luxury. And those who have been able to integrate health into the culture of identity, I think are doing a great job. So you should celebrate, you should market or craft your product in a way that it becomes something celebrational that you want to show to the world. I think I totally agree with you.
Well, you were talking about the Oura ring. So there's now a partnership with, I think it's Gucci, right? Like, do you think people will buy more of the Oura ring because it's more fashion?
Yeah, I think, as you see Hermes doing an Apple Watch, right? So it's not the same as the Apple Watch, it's triple the price. It's even 4 times the price. It's a little bit larger. You can have faces that you can't have elsewhere. Hermes is doing an Apple Watch. So I think, Gucci doing an Oura ring will probably take up.
I've once read that a Gucci bag is less desirable than good health these days, and that's just how people want to be and what people want to be wearing. That's why athleisure is also so popular these days, I guess. And this is all the thing behind, in my opinion, and that's what I write about in my book, is that Healthusiasm is really that important to people that it start to infiltrate in all different types of industries, not just because of the luxury of it, but just because it's that important to people. And if they could relate that to products, or if they could help or have brands that help them in becoming healthy and happy, that's what really makes it a difference.
I think we need to separate what is good health versus what is aesthetics. I do think that sometimes they are in line. Let's say, you're doing a lot of lifting. There are some physical changes that will happen. It's been proven to help with osteoporosis, but that's not exactly the same thing. So social media, I think, definitely moves forward the aesthetics. I do think there has been a move where looking healthy and fit is much more common than maybe it was even 15, 20 years ago. And that has probably improved people's health. But, there is still a difference of what's aesthetics, because not all of the aesthetics are healthy. There are definitely people who look good who may not be as healthy. Maybe their blood pressure isn't as good. You don't know some of those metrics.
Exactly. And the way that I always talk about is there's 4 levels of, health-related decisions that people can take. There's really the lifestyle-related things where it's how you look, it's related to your interests, it's related to your passions. Then the second level, a little bit above it, is about how you feel. You need to feel healthy and happy, which doesn't always mean that you are healthy. Then you have the health-related decision, or the prevention-related decision, where you say, I'll quit smoking. But it's not particularly a medical decision in itself. And then you have the medical decision. So there's lifestyle, well-being, health and prevention, and then you have the medical decisions. And to me, each of these levels have a different impact on your health. But the driver underneath it for every single human being is the same. They want to look and feel healthy and happy. They want to make sure that in their lives they're healthy and happy. So that's how I look at it. This is what I call the Healthusiasm model, indeed.
I think that's a good point. Back to you, Aditi. What you said, looking healthy means in the moment. And in the moment is part of having an identity. I think what a lot of health and pharma brands don't understand is the long game of health. People are not really interested in longevity in the long run. I think their direct need is to be okay today, to get the full, get the max out of life and don't miss out on opportunities. What we've also seen is that for some medical or pharma brands, the longevity, you could add, for instance, to quit smoking, you could add 5 years to your life if you quit smoking now. People are not mobilized by that. In behavioral science, we call that hyperbolic discounting. It's too far away for you to be really tangible today. So I think that's a good point. If you want to make it tangible, how will you gain from it today? What is tangible today and how will you benefit from that action today so that you get, very fast feedback loops and that you feel that it's really working directly.
That's a great point. And I wish there was an easier way to do it. I mean, high blood pressure is a very easy one because the long-term consequences are devastating, but you don't feel it on a daily basis when you don't have it. And then sometimes it gets too late. And that by that point, the patient is, or anybody, not just patients, I was using it in my terms, but they regret it. But then we're clearly not always giving them the right benefits or the right arguments of why to do it this day. And what you're saying is exactly true. People only worry about today until it's too late sometimes.
But do you think it's a question of early diagnosis, so they know early that they have blood pressure, for instance? Or is it a question of educating them and explaining them what they should do to control it, so they actually don't have it?
Yeah, so it could be both. So there is, of course, the prevention aspect. I was actually talking about people who have been diagnosed with high blood pressure. And because most of them don't have any symptoms, you don't feel it all the time that you have high blood pressure. And so sometimes they may have longstanding because they don't realize that taking their medication is really important. And so I'm talking more of how do you incentivize them to do that? Because again, you don't necessarily feel it today.
Prevention is a very, very hard business. Why? Because when people survive, you're not able to tell them, I did that because I told you to do that. For instance, vaccines, regular vaccine, HPV vaccines, the fact that we're not talking about the vaccine, which let's talk about something else, HPV vaccines, for instance, the fact that a woman turns 50 or 60, the physician can say, see, told you, no. So it's very hard. The prevention business is really, really hard because it's untangible. And once again, here I am with the hyperbolic discounting. You don't know what you're going to lose. There's ways to do it. But I think the last thing, from my experience, knowledge is overrated. Knowing what it does to your body tends to be overrated. Why? Because it's often these messages are construed by medical people who know the breadth of the consequences it has. But for the individual, it's not as tangible. If knowledge would be interesting, all physicians would be healthy. And that's not the case.
I do understand that basically we can easily find prevention very difficult because it's hard to motivate people. At the same time, a number that I really like is that the wellness industry and the self-care industry is 4 times as big as a pharma industry. So it means that, and the prices are way lower. So it means that there's a lot of people investing in wellness and self-care. So there is things to do because people are engaged. The question is whether within the medical healthcare industry, we are making the right solutions that are actually engaging enough to really get that prevention out there and be successful. I think that is one of the main questions.
Just to round up, there's also a strange relationship because the medical healthcare industry supports you until the symptoms are over, but not until you reach health. The end of a disease is not the start of health, right? So when you end chemotherapy, you're not healthy. And what happens then is the relapse is quicker because people are let go. You let go of people at the end of the business model. And I think that might be an interesting part, for pharma brands is, does their responsibility continue beyond the end of symptoms from a societal point of view? So that's what we call positive health. When you finish your last chemotherapy session and you're symptom free, you're not healthy. But that's where most of the support stops.
And you know what? Because everyone's definition of health is also different, right? You look at the qualities and the dalis. So not everybody's are the same. And then and because you're not able to prove some of the prevention, you sometimes have a disconnect in what people are willing to pay for, willing to research. All of those things also wrap into creating more of this problem and it continuing. This topic you can talk about for hours, how we make these incentives work. So I will stop there.
There's actually some tech solutions that can do the follow-up. So more if you take the case of France, there are 3 tech solutions who are reimbursed by Social Security. And one of them is a solution to follow up patients who suffered from lung cancer. So like every week they enter the symptoms, and there's a AI algorithm that will look at those symptoms. And if there's an issue or sign of an early relapse, they will put them in touch with the healthcare professionals so they can act like as soon as possible.
Yeah, there's definitely quite some solutions out there.
Mm-hmm. That's a good way forward. I think if we can take putting the data in manually out of it, it would be even better.
I have the feeling that it was supposed to be a introductory session on ourselves, and we immediately got the hang of it, and we started discussing way down the line on many, many interesting subjects. Just bringing it back to you before I just wrap this session up. We talked about prevention. We talked about what health means to you. We talk about being happy. Just quickly, from each one of you, a take on what does health and happiness means to you, and how do you maintain it, or what would you recommend other people to do to try to be healthy and happy? Maybe I'll give the word to Krupa first.
Health is, for me, it's around balance. And for me, the way I look after myself is I have a number of daily practices, from yoga to walking my dog to journaling and actually cooking home cooked fresh food. And that for me is health, and just knowing when to stop. I purposely work a 4-day week so I can take care of myself as well. So there's a combination, but it's a balance. And I think I haven't got any suggestions for anyone else, because I feel that they will make their own choices of what health means to them. And it may not be all the things I'm suggesting. It could be going for a run, but that's not for me.
Wonderful. I think, Aditi, you mentioned once to me that enjoying art is even helping you to feel healthy and happy, right?
Yes, and it's based on a very long story of burnout in the emergency room, because I realized at some point that when I was working there, you're seeing sometimes the worst of humanity, not even just the pain and the suffering of death and the fear, but the violence, the everything that's wrong with the U.S. healthcare system ends up in the ER. And so trying to figure out what would make me happy was a lot. So obviously the things that Krupa mentioned are really important, sleeping and taking care of yourself. But I also realized there's beautiful parts of the world to enjoy. And so I truly try to make an effort to do that. And I mean that in every way. It can be, museums and seeing actual art, or, seeing performances, seeing or dancing, but also like food can be art. I really love eating. And so all of those things I really try to enjoy and make a purpose to do that regularly. So to enjoy what's beautiful about the world as well.
How beautiful is it in Portugal right now, Mo?
It's wonderful. Yeah, I think taking some time, the opportunity we have to be digital nomads means that there's kind of no compromise. Last year I went 1.5 months, I went to Spain and did the best business I ever did and in between meetings, I just took a dip in a pool and said, I'll be right back. So I think living in the moment is one thing. I think I'm a bit weary of the word happiness, because it has become so heavy, both on social media. You see everyone being happy around you. So I think happiness is overrated, but I think contentment is underrated. Being content with who you are, with what you have, with what you do, who you are becoming. I think, and being gentle with yourself and being forgiving with yourself and being patient, I think is one thing. Secondly, is surrounding yourself with beautiful people that inspire you. I think is really, really a source of energy for me. And following your gut feeling on, if there's a vibe, and pursuing contacts. I think social interactions is one of the main things that keep us healthy. Being surrounded by people you find interesting and that inspire you, that you love and that you care for and that you really want to spend time with, I think is what keeps me content.
I saw, Aline, you're known as the digital health connector. So connecting people is probably your biggest passion above everything else, probably, right?
Yeah, exactly. So really what makes me happy in the week is when I can go for coffee with people. That's really where I get the energy for the week. So I do like Krupa and Aditi were saying. So I take my probiotics in the morning. So my gut is happy. I do some Pilates and Zumba, go for a walk. So that's more for the body. But then I really do need like a week where I don't see anybody. I'm not happy. So yeah, more absolutely agree with that. The social interaction, that's what we miss so much in those past years and makes such a difference.
Yeah, I totally agree. When we were in lockdown, that was the first thing that really hurt it, right? When not seeing people. I discovered back then to meditate very much. Ever since it changed my life. So I tried it March 2020 the first time. I'm doing it every day ever since, because it really changed the way that I stand in life, the way that I can enjoy things and approach life in general. Look, to the audience, this is the Healthusiasm panel. As you can see, we briefly introduced ourselves, and we already started introducing ourselves and even going into the very deep subjects already. I think it's very promising. And the next months, years to come, hopefully you will expect, or you can expect, the five of us in your ears with these types of discussions, and basically talking about how we would love to see the world becoming a healthier and happier place. And so every month we will be discussing, anything that is changing, the trends and innovations that are often mentioned in my newsletters as well. We will debate my newsletters as I've written them. We will highlight the different Healthusiasms that we encounter in our lives, in our articles, or maybe in the different business ideas that we've came across. We will debate in a very clear way whether something new is actually something, nothing, or everything for this world. And we will definitely look into, as we already did today a bit, whether some particular innovation might be interesting for the healthcare industry, or some particular innovation in the healthcare industry might be interesting for the consumer business as such. So there's a lot to unpack here. I think we have a wonderful group of people that we can have some very interesting discussions with, I would say. So without further ado, I can definitely close this session for now. Thank you very much for being here. If you like this show, don't forget to subscribe to it on your favorite podcast platform. But you can also find us on the Shift Forward Health channel. It's a channel with all podcasts that talk about the future of health and self-care. For now, I'd like to thank Aditi Joshi, Aline Noizet, Kupar Sutar, Mozowina for their insights and their Healthusiasm, of course. My name is Christophe Jauquet. We are the Healthusiasm panel, and we'd love to see you again next time for some more Healthusiasm. Thank you all for being here. Bye.
Thanks for tuning in. If you like what you heard, please spread the word. Tell your colleagues to tune in for all the awesomeness, then leave a review on Apple, Spotify, or wherever you listen. This show is produced by Shift Forward Health, the channel for changemakers. Subscribe to Shift Forward Health on your favorite podcast app, and you'll be subscribed to our entire library of shows. See our full lineup at shiftforwardhealth.com. One subscription, all the podcasts you need, and it's all for free. And remember, we might have a lot of work to do in healthcare, but we'll get there faster together. Thanks again.